It is hard to pick just one fossil. Many have caused big fights, many have changed how we see things. But if you have to pick the most debated, the one that kept scientists arguing for over a century, the one still argued about today, it has to be Archaeopteryx. This fossil is special. It came at just the right time. Charles Darwin had just put out his book On the Origin of Species in 1859. People were trying to understand evolution. They were looking for evidence. Then, in 1861, a strange fossil showed up. It was called Archaeopteryx lithographica. It looked like nothing else. Imagine being there. It was found in Germany, in a place called Solnhofen. This place is famous for its fine limestone. The stone can capture amazing details. And it captured Archaeopteryx perfectly. This first fossil was just a feather. A single, perfect feather. It looked like a modern bird's feather. But it was found in very old rock. A rock from the Jurassic period. That was way before birds were supposed to be around. Then, a bit later, a full skeleton was found. It was even more amazing. It had clear feathers, all along its arms, like wings, and along its tail. But the rest of the skeleton was weird. It looked like a small dinosaur. It had teeth in its mouth. Modern birds do not have teeth. It had claws on its wings. Birds have very reduced claws or none. It had a long, bony tail. Modern birds have a very short, fused tailbone. So this fossil had a mix of features. Bird features and reptile features. It was like a puzzle. What was it? Was it a bird? Was it a reptile? Or was it something in between? This was exactly what Darwin's theory predicted. It predicted transitional forms, creatures that show steps in evolution. Archaeopteryx looked like the perfect example. It seemed to bridge the gap between reptiles and birds. This discovery immediately threw the scientific world into a big debate. Thomas Henry Huxley was a big supporter of Darwin. He saw Archaeopteryx and knew it was important. He saw the dinosaur like bones. He saw the feathers. He said, this is it. He used it to argue that birds came from reptiles. This was a radical idea at the time. Most people thought birds were birds and reptiles were reptiles. They were different. Archaeopteryx challenged that, but not everyone agreed. Richard Owen was another famous scientist then. So he was against Darwin's ideas. Owen argued that Archaeopteryx was just a bird. A very old, unusual bird. But still a bird. He said the feathers made it a bird. He tried to downplay the reptile features. This was a common tactic. If you could say it was just one thing, not a mix, then it did not support evolution. This early debate set the stage for all the arguments that followed. The problem was what defined a bird. Was it feathers? If so, Archaeopteryx was a bird. Was it warm-blooded? Hard to tell from a fossil. Was it flight? That was a big question. Could Archaeopteryx really fly? Its skeleton did not look like a strong flyer. Its sternum, the breastbone where flight muscles attach, was pretty flat. Modern birds have a big keeled sternum. This keel gives a large surface for strong flight muscles. Archaeopteryx did not have that. This led to the first big ongoing debate: how did Archaeopteryx fly, if at all? Some scientists thought it was a glider. Maybe it lived in trees. It would climb up with its claws. Then it would jump and glide down. This is called the trees down hypothesis. Others thought it was a ground runner. Maybe it flapped its wings to get some lift, to catch insects, or to escape predators. This is the ground-up hypothesis. Both ideas had evidence. Both had problems. The debate went on for decades. As more Archaeopteryx fossils were found, the picture got clearer, but also more complicated. By the early 20th century, about 10 specimens were known. Each one added a bit more detail. They confirmed the mix of features, they confirmed the feathers, but they did not settle the flight debate, or its exact place in bird evolution. Was it the direct ancestor of all birds? Or was it just a cousin? For a long time, Archaeopteryx stood alone. It was the only feathered creature from that far back in time. It was the first bird. This made it super important, but then new finds started to challenge its special spot. In the 1980s, a scientist named Sankar Chatterjee claimed he found an even older, more bird-like fossil. He called it Protoavis. He said it was from the Triassic period that was much older than the Jurassic. If Protoavis was real, and truly a bird, it would push back the origin of birds a lot, and it would make Archaeopteryx less special. Archaeopteryx would just be a side branch, not the main line to modern birds. This Protoavis claim caused a huge storm. People argued fiercely. Some said it was a mix of different bones from different animals, not a single creature. Others said it was poorly preserved. The scientific community mostly rejected Protoavis in the end. They did not think it was a true bird, or even one animal, but for a while it really shook things up. It showed how important Archaeopteryx was and how easily its status could be challenged. Then came the really big change. In the late 20th century, especially from the 1990s onward, amazing fossils started coming out of China. These were feathered dinosaurs. Not just feathered dinosaurs, but dinosaurs with very bird-like features. They were found in the J-hole biota, places like Liaoning. Fossils like Archaeopteryx showed simple downy feathers. Not flight feathers, but definitely feathers. This proved that feathers were not just for birds. Dinosaurs had them too. Then came Archaeopteryx and Protarchaeopteryx. These were small, fast-running dinosaurs. They had flight feathers on their arms and tails, but they could not fly. They were too heavy. Their wings were too small. These finds changed everything. The idea that birds were direct descendants of dinosaurs gained huge ground. Scientists started to say birds are living dinosaurs. Specifically, they came from a group of meat-eating dinosaurs called theropods. The same group as T-Rex, but smaller members, Maniraptorans. Where did Archaeopteryx fit in now? It used to be the unique first bird. Now, it was just one of many feathered dinosaurs. One that happened to have asymmetric feathers, feathers that are good for flight. But how special was it? This led to a new wave of debate. Is Archaeopteryx a bird? Or is it a feathered dinosaur? The line's blurred. Many scientists now call the group that includes Archaeopteryx and modern birds Avialae. So Archaeopteryx is a basal avialan, one of the earliest members of the bird lineage. But it's also very much a dinosaur in its skeleton. The dinosaur connection made the flight debate even more interesting. If birds came from ground-dwelling dinosaurs, did flight evolve from the ground up? Or did some of these dinosaurs climb trees and then evolve flight from there? The ground-up idea got new life. Maybe feathered dinosaurs ran along the ground. They used their small feathered arms to help them balance, or to get extra thrust, or to catch insects. Over time, these flaps became wings. This is called the wing-assisted incline running, Ware hypothesis. Young birds today use a similar motion to run up slopes or trees, but the trees down idea still had supporters. Archaeopteryx's claws were strong, they looked good for climbing, maybe it lived in trees, and glided between them. The asymmetric feathers suggested some kind of aerodynamic function, even if not strong flapping flight. In the early 2000s, another amazing fossil came from China Microraptor. This was a four-winged dinosaur. It had long flight feathers on its legs as well as its arms. This creature was probably a glider. It also lived in trees. This made the question of Archaeopteryx's lifestyle even more complex. Did flight evolve multiple times? Were there many different pathways to flight? The Microraptor showed that a four-winged gliding phase was possible. Could Archaeopteryx have gone through something similar? This was debated. The definition of bird itself became a huge part of the debate. If feathers no longer defined a bird, what did? Was it a fused tailbone? A toothless beak? A keeled sternum? Archaeopteryx had none of these modern bird features. So, was it really a bird? Or was it just a very bird-like dinosaur? Some scientists now put Archaeopteryx outside the group that includes modern birds. They call it a very advanced dinosaur. Others keep it as the earliest known bird. It depends on where you draw the line. This is a very common problem in evolution. Where do you draw the line between one species and the next? Between one group and another? For Archaeopteryx, sits right on that fuzzy line. The way scientists now use the term bird is often based on what's called a crown group definition. That means all descendants of the last common ancestor of all living birds. Archaeopteryx is not in that group. It's often considered a stem bird or a basal avialan. This distinction is important. It means Archaeopteryx is on the bird lineage, but not necessarily the direct ancestor of today's birds. It might be a cousin, a very close cousin. The debates about Archaeopteryx are not just among scientists. Creationists and proponents of intelligent design love to talk about Archaeopteryx. They use it to argue against evolution. They say it's not a true transitional form. They say it's either fully bird or fully reptile. No in between. They point to the feathers. Feathers are complex, they say. They could not evolve in steps. They claim Archaeopteryx's feathers are fully formed flight feathers. So it must have been a bird. And if it was a bird, it does not show reptile to bird evolution. But this ignores the dinosaur-like skeleton, it ignores the teeth, and the long tail. Scientists counter that feathers did evolve. They started as simple filaments, then branched, then became more complex. The fossil record, especially from China, shows these steps. Archaeopteryx is a snapshot in time. It shows a creature with well-developed feathers, but its skeleton tells a clear story of reptilian ancestry. It is exactly what a transitional form should look like. a mosaic of old and new features. The debate about Archaeopteryx's flight capabilities still continues. Modern imaging techniques help. Scientists use CT scans to look inside the bones. They can reconstruct the brain, the inner ear. This can tell them about its balance and agility. Some studies suggest it had good vision, good balance, but not the big flight muscles of a modern bird. So, it could fly, but maybe not like an eagle, more like a pheasant trying to get away from a predator. In short bursts, or glides, the shape of its wing feathers is still a big point of discussion. They are asymmetric, like modern flight feathers, but how strong were they? Could they withstand the forces of flapping flight, or were they just for gliding? No, or maybe a mix of both. Another area of debate is Archaeopteryx's color. Recent studies have looked at melanosomes and fossilized feathers. These are tiny pigment structures. They can give clues about color. Some work suggests Archaeopteryx had dark, iridescent feathers. Maybe mostly black. This is a neat detail, but it also opens up new questions about its camouflage, its display, and how those colors might have helped it survive. Even the growth rate of Archaeopteryx is debated. Were these creatures fast-growing like modern birds, or slower like reptiles? These studies of bone rings suggest they grew slower than modern birds, but faster than many reptiles. Again, a mix, a transitional state. This points to a change in metabolism, a step towards the fast, high-energy lifestyle of birds. So, Archaeopteryx is not just a fossil, it's a conversation starter, a debate machine. It came out of the ground at a crucial time for evolutionary theory. It gave Darwin a real-world example. It has been examined, re-examined, and argued over for more than 160 years. It made us question what a bird is, what a reptile is. It showed us that evolution doesn't always go in neat straight lines. It branches, it experiments, it produces creatures with amazing mixes of features. Today, Archaeopteryx is no longer seen as the only link, or even necessarily the direct ancestor of all modern birds. The picture of bird evolution is much richer now. We have many feathered dinosaurs, many early birds, but Archaeopteryx was the first. It was the one that opened our eyes. It keeps scientists honest. It reminds them that new discoveries can always change what we thought we knew. It forces constant reevaluation. It shows the messy, wonderful process of science. It shows how a single ancient creature can continue to teach us, to challenge us, to spark new debates. Even after all this time, that is why Archaeopteryx holds the title. The most debated fossil in history.